Hi, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Transatlantic Call-In Show, where you get to talk to real-life trans people about any type of questions or thoughts that you may have about our lived existence. Not many places you can do that, but you can do that here. And I am joined here with Luxander. How are you today, Lux?
Hello, I'm doing pretty okay. I started working out hardcore again this week, so it's definitely been a tired week, but otherwise doing pretty good. Ready to field some calls. Very excited. How you doing today, Josie?
I'm doing okay. I had a pretty long work day today. I know it's long, but I after this today, I'm gonna be going into DC to go and be on a panel for Latina voters. So I'm gonna go and do that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to go and speak, and it's always nice to be represented on panels. So that's where I'm
Mhm.
gonna go. It's gonna be a good time.
Long day.
You're working out. Yeah. You're working out, are you back to the routine, or is it like you're getting back into it? Are you doing strength training? You running? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's like strength training, basically. You know, the whole like muscle mommy look is really in right now. So that's kind of the direction that I'm trending. It's sad because today was upper body and I messed up my schedule and I
Mm.
missed today. Like I should have gone earlier in the morning and I forgot that I had this in the afternoon. So yeah, I'm just like I want to be a big upper body person and also very like strong in the lower body. So it's strength training, it's body recomposition. Like last year, I started to get a little bit fluffy around the middle, so we're trying to like just get that in before it gets a little bit. It's easier to pause before it gets like out of hand. So that's kind of the direction. I'm not trying to like lose weight. If anything, I'm trying to gain muscle weight. But yeah, so I don't like doing cardio. Cardio is very repetitive. So that's
Yes.
I'm avoiding
Yes.
cardio, just strength training right now and yeah, maxing out my protein. It's good stuff.
Yeah, no, and I used to be an amateur bodybuilder in the
Mm.
Navy. So I used to be like scary big, and I
Mhm.
just like think about that now and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." So I have like people say I have like Michelle Obama arms, and I'm
Mm,
just
mhm.
like, "Oh." It's just like, "Okay, I guess I can take that." And people are like, "Oh, your arms are so nice." And I'm like, "They're not clocky? Oh my god." Like it's like, "Ah."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
little bit
really
of wing
interesting.
underneath there. I've got that too. So
Yeah,
yeah, the struggle's
yeah,
real.
exactly. It's just like, oh, I know it's strong looking, but I'm just like, do I want it? And it's like I wanted the little fluff around my stomach and get rid of my six
Mhm.
pack a little bit, but I had like a really, really tight six pack for a long time, and I'm like, estrogen, kick in, make me give me a belly, and people are like, what
Yeah,
are you talking about? And I was like, leave me
super
alone.
common. I think it's super common. Like trans girls tend to want to gain weight because they're like, oh, it's going to go on in the hip and the belly and like,
Yeah.
start to fill out those curves a little bit. And like, I know trans guys are almost the opposite where they're like, I want to work out to make my muscles bigger and like make my hips smaller. So no, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And cis women everywhere are like, "Shut up, Josie. You have a perfect stomach." I'm like, "No, it's not perfect to me."
We're all in a type of transition, I think. Like we're all kind
Yeah.
of no matter where we are in the process, there is somewhere we're still in the middle of going. Like we're all gonna die with
Yeah.
unfinished work. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. So with that fun little conversation, let's get into the last week's poll.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's gonna happen. All right, it happened. So, will you be more likely to vote for Biden if Biden drops out of the race? And 65% said no, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I, I
I
don't
was
know what to
looking in the
say. I'm
comments.
shocked.
I think that people were basically saying like I'm going to vote anyway. Like the question is like are
Mm,
you going to be more likely to vote period? Like even I who have said like I am not really planning on voting for Biden. I live in Kansas. I don't have to. Um, I I'm still going to vote, right? Like I'm going to vote down ballot and everything. So yeah, I think a lot of people in the comments I was seeing were basically just saying, I'm gonna vote either way. Like it's not gonna change whether I go to the ballot box if Biden drops out or not. Um, I think I answered yes because it was like I wasn't really planning on voting for Biden, but and is not a difference either way. Like I live in Kansas, it's gonna go red, whatever. But I would vote for whoever else if someone else was the person. So yeah, like I personally would be more likely to vote in the presidential, although I am still going to vote down ballot kind of no matter what happens. So yeah.
No, that makes sense. And if that's the case, and that's kind of what I was thinking when I was looking at this as well, is that means 35% more people would vote, more likely to vote.
Hmm.
Like that's actually pretty great. Like I'm like down for that. And let's just say like the news ain't looking good for the internal conversations that are happening with Biden. Biden unfortunately also has COVID.
Mm.
And like I think the worst opportune time that you could possibly get it, especially in the point where you're trying to prove to America that you're not sickly.
Hmm.
And now it's like Biden's like, I'm not feeling well. And like a lot of the interviews, he's been coughing a lot. And so there now that he has COVID, I think people are just like, you're not winning over the critics. You had Adam Schiff come out recently, and the reason that's important is the fact that Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi are like this. In fact, you can make an argument to say the reason Adam Schiff even won the nomination, or not the nomination, but won the primary for the California senator for the U.S. Senate is because of Nancy Pelosi and the connections that they've had. So
Hmm.
having him come out is a huge thing. You have a serious conversation that happened with Chuck Schumer recently, who's the leader of the Senate. You also had a rumor that Hakeem Jeffries is now speaking again to Biden about this, and then you have Obama. Yeah, it's I think we're going to get some news this weekend. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go, because for me the election is voting against Trump or not voting against Trump. that's
Hmm.
that's what the ballot looks like to me.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. What are your thoughts on that whole?
I mean, definitely it does not look good for Biden that he's ill right now, especially because he claimed, like, I watched the interview following the debate. I didn't watch the debate itself, but my understanding is that his excuse for his poor performance was that he was sick and had been recovering for like 10 days or something. And so it's like, okay, it took you almost 2 weeks to get over some illness. And then it's only been a couple weeks since then. And now you're sick again, and like we know that people in their 60s, 70s, 80s are in the high risk group. Um, what are the chances that he's going to fully 100% recover from this illness that we know causes neurocognitive decline? Like, so I personally, my fingers are crossed that it's Jover. Like, he said he was going to be a transitional president. And then he's like, oh, things are so divided right now. That was his statement. Oh, things are so divided. I don't know how I can step down. And it's like, if that's your claim, and I'm not going to state that things became more divided under Biden's presidency, but that's the logic that follows is like things became more divided under your presidency. Why would you be the person that we want? Like, there's all this lack of faith from a lot of folks in the Democratic Party, whether it's just voters or people who are involved behind the scenes. So, yeah, I think that he needs to rest. I think that we shouldn't be putting octogenarians in this situation where they have to work 60 to 80 hours a week, Just take a breeze. Like go have a pina colada on the beach or
I
something. Like
know.
just relax.
Go be a hero. Like be the best one-term president of American history. Like that's what I
Yeah,
say.
please.
Like just Oh, that's a great thing to rest your hat on, and then retire, and then just like live a life. Be Jimmy Carter. Go build some houses for some people if you think you're strong. Like go and do
Yeah.
that. Like that.
We need
Like
someone who's
that's
sharp.
how I live. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and he's just slowed down, but even if it's him, I'll still vote for him, but, like, I just want him to, take the time he needs and rest and not, like you said, work 60, 80 hours a week.
Mhm.
But yeah, so to today's poll, which is also topical, do you think forcing teachers to out trans kids to their parents could pose harm to these students? This comes from the fact that California just passed a law that will not force teachers to tell their parents about their trans status of their students. And I think it's a good law. I think it's a great law. And I know I'm kind of pushing here on people's ideas, but yeah, I think demonstrated evidence shows that if you out a person, regardless if they're young or not, to somebody who may not be receptive to it, that is a form of abuse. But that's my opinion. What are your thoughts, Lex?
Yeah, so this does apply to gay and trans students. So like it protects gay kids as well. My personal opinion is that if your kid is coming out to a teacher, but they have not come out to you, the parent, that is indicative of what kind of relationship you have with your kid. And like, I remember I came out when I was a teenager. I remember being a teenager vividly, and I had a safe relationship with my dad where I felt like, I mean, I didn't initially want to come out because I was just like, I'm still working through this internally. And when he finally was like, hey, you need to tell me what's going on, I didn't feel like scared that he was going to kick me out or anything. But I was cognizant enough of the world to know that that is like on the table for some people. And so, teenagers, even I would say as young as like, we see kids coming out when they're like 8 or 10 or whatever. If those kids are not coming out to their parents, it's because they know that there could be ramifications in that relationship. And that is what this is ultimately about for me, is preventing abuse. So, yeah, if your kids are coming out to their teachers, it's because their teachers have made it obvious that they are a safe person, like they're a safe space. So, like, do I think that forcing teachers to out trans kids could harm them? Absolutely. That's the whole point. If the kid wants advice on how to come out, the teacher should be a safe person to talk to and be like, okay, how can I strategize? How can I help you with this? It's not necessarily creating a situation where like the teachers are going to be like, okay, now this is our little secret, Jimmy, like that's like
Yeah.
the way that people take this. People take this that direction of like, oh, you shouldn't have secrets with adults with children, like who aren't the parents or whatever, because of, again, they're basically indirectly invoking this whole grooming rhetoric. Yeah, that's not the point though. So just to be clear, the point is to protect kids from potentially invalidating environments at home. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Because the reality is like, and I think you nailed it right on the head with is like, this isn't some secret conspiracy to trans your kids. Like, it's just what needs to happen.
Hmm.
So it just needs to be like, hey, they're just confiding. They're not getting hormones for their teachers. Like, that's just how it works. But anyways, all right. Well, we do have some callers on the line. We do still have, I think, one space for callers, possibly. So if you are interested, make sure you call in on the number down on the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288, or you can click in through the web link below. Also, if you want to do super chats, all super chats that are $5 or more will be read out at the end of the show.
And hit
So
the like
make
button. It's
sure.
quick, it's easy, it's
Yes,
free.
yes. And if you're not subscribed, how dare you? Change that now. I know. All right. With that, let's go ahead and get into some calls. So let's take a look at some of these things. We have a question that's specifically for you, Luxander. How about we go ahead and take Jeremiah from Texas? Hello,
Hello,
Jeremiah. How are you? I see you
I'm
have a
well.
question for Alexander.
Yes, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I've heard that Luxander goes by its pronouns. So my question is, what would motivate someone to use non-standard pronouns in such a way?
Yeah, amazing question. Thank you very much. I actually did just put like a 20 odd minute video on my channel that'll go kind of in more depth than this conversation will probably do. But yeah, so non-standard pronouns in general. I mean, I personally think that pronouns are, I mean, it's a very personal aspect of gender expression. And we kind of, it's like it makes perfect sense that a trans woman wants to use she, her pronouns, right? Like, I think that most people kind of just feel like that intuitively makes sense because there is like there's this whole idea involved with she, her pronouns. Like, I identify as a woman and maybe I'm feminine and I don't want to be associated with men. And I think for non binary people, it's a lot more difficult to find what is the exact correct flavor. I mean, we get myopic about gender identity labels, and I don't really personally play into that, but there's some people who are like, I'm a demi boy, or like, they come up with these like very specific words for their gender label. And so I think pronouns kind of fit into a similar framework where it's just trying to figure out which ones resonate. And like, there's no easy path from A to B. If you're binary trans, you started out, okay, I was assigned male at birth. I used he, him pronouns as a kid, and now I identify as a woman, and I'm going to use she, her pronouns and grow my hair out and all this. And yeah, so for non-binary people, there are a lot of different neo-pronoun options. Obviously, there's the popularization of they, them pronouns. I personally feel that they, them pronouns themselves are starting to get a gendered feeling to them, kind of the same as like she and he have. And I just feel that they don't vibe, they don't resonate. And there are people who use z, zim, zir pronouns and v, vim, vir pronouns, and like those I respect. They just don't resonate with me personally. So I prefer its pronouns because I feel that that is a more representative like of me as an agender person, like I don't have a specific gender identity. So yeah, I don't know. Do you have any follow-ups?
Not specifically. I mean, my understanding was that they, them was common for non-binary people, and I understand that that works as a singular. And
Yeah.
it didn't feel gendered to me, so it's interesting to hear that particular perspective. So,
Yeah, and like for
Yeah.
some people, it is. I think we still use they them as a non-gendered singular. Like, oh hey, somebody left their phone on the table. But yeah, I mean, it's just I came out when I was 15, which was like half my lifetime ago, and I used they them pronouns for a long time, and I still do in my day-to-day life for the most part. Like I'm not really asking people offline to use its because I think that that's quite confronting, and I don't actually want to have this conversation every time I introduce myself to someone. But yeah, like I just don't feel that that resonates with me as much anymore. I'm not going to get mad at people for using they them pronouns for me, but it just doesn't feel like truly accurate, in the same way that someone might be like, yeah, you can use she pronouns because I'm still early in my transition, but I really prefer they. Like, I know a lot of AFAB non-binary people who kind of are going through that sort of journey. So, people sometimes have secondary pronoun sets, or like, I use these pronouns at work, I use these pronouns with my family, and I use these pronouns with my friends because it's kind of difficult to get people on side. Or like, yeah, maybe you just don't want to have these difficult conversations on a daily basis. So yeah, I think people choose non-standard pronouns because they're trying to find the language that represents them, that communicates who they are to the world, and that it's very imprecise. Like, language is not great at capturing the complexity of gendered feelings. So yeah, I think that's pretty much as in depth as I can go in here without having a whole autism rant, because that's the other part of this for me.
Yeah.
I sympathize. I've been diagnosed with autism since a very young age. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely.
being othered a
So
lot kind of makes you start to embrace the otherness after a while.
Yeah. So does
I
that
can see that.
clarify it for you, Jeremy? Jeremiah,
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah,
sorry.
but yes, it does clarify it for
Jeremiah,
me.
my
No, it's
apologies.
fine.
Apologize. Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
no, that definitely helps me understand. One last thing before I go, and this is more towards Josie, because I have spoken with you briefly before, Josie,
Yeah.
just about getting some HRT treatment because I'm a cisgender man and I need testosterone. And so tomorrow I'm finally having my follow-up with my primary care physician. So though I'm a little terrified, I am going to take your advice that you gave me last time of, asking if my physician would give this treatment to, say, a trans man. So fingers crossed.
Well, good. Yes, thank you. And thank you for doing that. And I wish you the best journey on your gender affirming care, which cis people can
Thank you.
also get. So yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for calling in. Let us know how your doctor reacts. I would be very interested in that.
All right, I will. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, goodbye.
Bye. All right. Yeah, that's great. And I did watch your video on YouTube, so I appreciate it.
Turned into an autism rant.
I liked it. It was good. I made it while I was heating up my lunch for my lunch break the other day, so it was nice. Great. So we have a call from Lucas from Sweden who wants to discuss the difference between gender and sex and wants to argue that there can only be biological male and female.
Fun.
Yes. Oh, I'm trying to. Hello, Lucas. How are you?
Hello.
So
I'm good.
Yeah, good. I see you wanted to discuss the difference between gender and sex, and you wanted to argue that there can only be biological male and female. So, how about you tell us why it can only be biological male or female?
First of all, I want to emphasize that English isn't my mother tongue, so if I misphrase
Absolutely.
something, I apologize. My intention is not to hurt anyone's feeling ever. But what I mean when I say this is basically I look at myself as a male, just like you look at a male dog or whatever. But when I look at humans, we have male or females, and this is where the difference between sex and gender comes in, because you have a sex, you are born with a sex, penis, vagina, or none of it. But the gender or gender, how you see yourself, that is something you are. Oh shit! I'm losing my words here.
Identity. Yeah, no, that's fine. I understand.
You are assigned your gender by society as a whole. And that's why I prefer to see myself as a male human, because that's based, that's facts.
Yeah, so
and I can't I can't say that it's not facts. It's facts.
Yes.
Whether
Lucas,
society sees me as a girlish man or not, that doesn't matter, because I am a male. I was born a male.
Yeah. So Lucas, thank you for laying out your position. This is where one thing that you have to understand about a trans person in general. I am a trans woman. I acknowledge the fact that I was born the male sex, right? Like that's what makes me trans, right? So nobody is denying. I'm not denying the fact that I was born male, right? So that is the sex that you're talking about, right? Now, the gender is normally assigned in society at the time you were born, but gender doesn't necessarily mean sex, right? They are two different things, right? Sex, which
I
is the
said so.
biology.
Gender is something we are assigned.
Right, but we don't have to stay with that assignment, right? So gender and sex, right? Like although I was assigned male at birth, right, and I was raised as a boy for several years of my life and grew up as such for a long time without being able to live my reality and truth as the woman that I am. The fact of the matter is the difference between gender and sex is very real and demonstrated, right? Because trans women, trans men, and non-binary people, they all exist outside of the reality of what they were assigned at birth. So there is a difference. Can you agree that there is a difference between sex and gender?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So now that we know that there's a difference between sex and gender, which is where you established at the beginning that sex is something that you're born with, and that isn't, you can't change that, right? But in
No.
gender, and with gender though, since they're different, gender is something that someone identifies as, right? Because when you look at myself, and I'm going to use myself as an example, I am a trans woman and my gender is woman, but my sex that I was assigned at birth is male. So therefore, I am a trans woman, but I'm still a woman. Does that make sense?
To some extent. I mean,
Where does it
I
make
would
sense?
argue that if you or I would argue that all trans men or women are always, unless operation, of course, but you are still the same sex.
And no trans person is saying otherwise. So do you understand what I mean by that, right? Like I even though, you know, with bottom surgery and things like that, I will never deny the reality that I was assigned male at birth when I was born. But that doesn't change who I am as a woman in society, right? So that's the reality. No, trans people, this is why there's a difference between sex and gender. Trans people are not walking around the world saying that they were not born the sex that they were assigned at birth. Trans people, when they say they're trans, are saying, I was assigned male, for a trans woman, for example, I was assigned male at birth, but I am a woman, so therefore I'm a trans woman, which is a type of woman. Does that make sense? That's why the difference between sex and gender is so important.
But at the same time, not. Because woman, a male like myself or you or someone trans, a male identifies as a woman, and since I'm not trans myself, I can only guess what that means, because I only identify myself as human. I don't really see what
you are a cis
differences
man,
are.
right? You are a cis man, meaning that you
I'm in a
were
wheelchair.
assigned male. Yeah. Well, yeah. So cis means the same side of, meaning that you are a person who was born assigned male at birth and you identify as a man now, right? And a trans woman or a trans person who doesn't identify as cis is someone who is not a man but identifies, in my case, as a woman, right? The lived reality is that fact, right?
Yeah, of course. But if you
So why do you need to argue more past that though, right? Like me in my life as living as a trans woman, I go through society every day. People just treat me as a woman. Society sees me as a woman. This is who I am as a woman. People aren't sitting here calling me a man, at least when people not maybe people not online anyway, are sitting here like saying, no, you're not a woman, you're a man, so I'm going to treat you as a man, because that doesn't make sense in the lived reality as me as a trans woman. So the biological reality that I was assigned male at birth is accounted for when I say, yes, I am a trans woman. But in most circumstances, I don't need to go and tell people I was assigned male at birth when I'm going to get a coffee, right? Like somebody's just going to be like, yes, ma'am, here you go. Here's your coffee. And I'm like, great, thank you. Nobody's saying, are you sure? Or should I call you a ma'am or a sir? Right? People in society don't do that because people interact with gender and not with sex, unless you're a doctor that deals with sex and you're actually, that is your profession, and you have to deal with people's genitals to figure out what their health conditions are. But outside of that, very few people interact with people's sex, but actually interact with people's gender.
I understand all of that. I guess what I'm really trying to say is that gender, if you identify as a woman or a man, it doesn't matter to me, because you're human and we should treat each other equally, and it shouldn't matter if you identify as a woman or a man. We should all be treated equally, because I know women who are very masculine, or what you would say, and I know men who are very feminine, to use the accepted term, I guess.
Yeah, and look,
I think they should be treated as humans, because the man who is very feminine, maybe he should be treated more gently or kindly or whatever you want to call it, while the woman can take a more rough. I don't know. It's just that I don't see gender as a real thing. It's just.
I mean, I love your ideal. I want to jump in here. Thank you so much for your call,
please.
Lucas, and I appreciate you explaining yourself. I think that you are speaking to a core feminist ideal that we should all be treated equally, and that, maybe there shouldn't be a role that women fit into or are supposed to fulfill. Like it's classic feminist literature, this idea that if there's an expectation that women should raise the babies and they should stay home and they should make the sandwiches, like that is not ideal, right? But the fact is, and maybe culturally things are a little bit different for you in Sweden, like in America at least, just the way that you operate in the daily world, it's not necessarily that you're being treated better or worse, but you are treated different. Like if someone perceives me, when people perceive me to be male, they perceive me as a very young man because I don't have any facial hair. So I'll get called buddy, classic. Or if I'm being perceived as female, typically they think that I'm older, and I'll get oh yeah, a ma'am. I think here's your coffee, ma'am, kind of thing. So, it would be a cool, we can imagine a hypothetical Star Trek future where gender is not really so much of a thing. But at present, that is the lived reality for basically everybody. Everybody is influenced in some way. Women are paid less than men on average, and women are prevented from entering fields because of harassment that are typically higher paying fields that are dominated by men. And in that hypothetical Star Trek future, we call this framing gender abolition, the idea that gender should not be part of the way that we operate. I imagine that in that future, people could still do the things that trans people do, where they change their characteristics, but that would have far fewer implications for them socially. And if they want to change their name or whatever, then that would just be easily accepted, as opposed to this thing that has like a lot of stigma involved and a lot of learning involved as you transition into a different social category, basically. I'm so there for your ideal of a world where gender doesn't matter. It just is the fact that we do still live in that world. And so while we have this construct of gender, we are going to have an identity that fits within that framework, that like that strong preference, basically, that says, I don't want to be treated like a woman, or I don't want to be treated like a man. I don't want to fulfill those roles. Like, being trans tends to go a little bit further than just like a woman who likes to work on cars and wants to cut her hair short, but still identifies as a woman. You know, like, there is something a little bit more in depth, it seems, like on a psychological or neurological level. But like, yeah, in a hypothetical world, I'm so happy that we can imagine it, that we can imagine a future where we don't like put so much meaning on this, right?
Yeah. I guess my point is that I have difficulty understanding all the people who are opposed to this, because I myself, ever since I was a small kid, just and first learned about the thing of being trans or something like that, I have been confused by it, because to me there is biological facts, male or female, and this gender thing, I don't buy into it, or I try not to. And of course, as Josie pointed out, I'm a cis white male, so life has been easier for me. And Sweden is one of the most equal countries in the world. But still, I have a hard time understanding why people would not want equality and just not care if someone is male or female. They should we're all humans.
Me too, Lucas. Me too, big time.
Yeah. Me too, Lucas. And Lucas, I hear where you're coming from, and I do wish that everybody had the ideal of like, it doesn't matter, just treat people nicely and treat people with respect and be that way. But unfortunately, and this is what I will explain, people use that there is, that gender doesn't exist, so therefore only sex exists, to use that as a form of abuse to trans people, right? People say, oh, you can't. So people will tell me I'm not a woman and try to dehumanize me and try to keep me out of being able to live in society as any other woman would in society. Or in your point of view, any human would deserve to be treated, right? So that's why I think with this conversation we push back, right, about the framing of there can only be biological male and female, because that has been a tool that has been used to do the exact opposite of what you want, right? So that's why when we say the words a trans woman is a woman, right? A non-binary person is valid and a trans man is a man. We say that because we need those words to tell the society to treat us with respect in the way that we identify. And unfortunately, very mean, hateful people have taken that language of there can only be biological male or female, and have used that as a tool of hate to oppress, harm, and to essentially kill trans people in this world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the way that I would look at it, and I think that your ideal is a beautiful one. I think that you want people to live and be equal, and people to live. But right now, what trans people need, and even in Sweden, because there's trans people in Sweden, What
I know.
trans people, yeah, what trans people need right now is for people to understand in society, when a trans woman is walking around, they are a woman. When a trans man is walking around, they are a man. It's a non-binary person is walking around, they should be treated with dignity and respect as who they are as people. And that's why we need support in that way. So Lucas, you will be doing more good for people in your society if you say, you know what, a trans person can be a woman. They're incredible. They can live however, no matter how they were born. It doesn't matter. They're living happy, beautiful lives as the people they say they are. And that is going to be more helpful to that ideal of equality, because when trans people are liberated to be able to be believed when they say they're a woman as a trans woman, that's where the equality, that's where the respect is going to be.
Yeah, I understand. I just
Yeah.
wanna I wanna emphasize once again that I don't mean to hurt anybody. I'm all for
Oh, I
equality,
understand
and I
that.
have no problem with you identifying however you want, no matter where in the world you are.
Yeah. Well, Lucas, I think this was a beautiful call. I really do appreciate your honesty and taking this conversation on. And yeah, and Lux, would you like to say anything else before we let Lucas go?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the call. I think it might be good if you wanted to call back later. Like, I don't know that we got in too deep on the, like, you can only be biologically male or female thing, because I was actually kind of wondering if that was more a statement about intersex people than it was a statement about trans people. But
No, I accept that you can be born without sex as well. That
okay,
not
cool.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, if you feel like we answered your question, then yeah, I appreciate you calling in, and hope you have a
Yeah.
good weekend.
yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
The
Thank
same.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
All right. Well, that was a good call. So, Luxander, do you see that Matthew is called in? Our good
I
friend
did. I am
Matthew.
excited.
Yeah,
Yes.
are you excited? Okay, so we'll
Always
go
good.
ahead and bring in Matthew, our friend from Ohio. How are you today?
Hey, Josie. Hey, Alexander. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Doing well.
Fantastic. So I called, we've been having conversations for about a couple of weeks now, and I would like to hope that they're going somewhere, but I feel like there is not this kind of conversation that's productive. I think we're getting, like, when I first called in with Dr. Ben Luxander, we talked about the difference between gender and sex, and I came in knowing that there's a difference between gender and sex. And we kind of came to a conclusion that I felt like was really good, that can kind of move us forward in conversation. And I think, Josie, you were making it seem like that was like a big conversation between you and I had to like twist my arm to say there's a difference. No, I've always known there was a difference. Even we have boys and girls, which are male and female, but they don't have gender. Their gender is not man or woman. So anywho,
Yeah.
the point is, I think I want us to, if we can, foster a better conversation, because even when the last talk with Dr. Ben, I was having this conversation, and I came in kind of just emptying my mind, and you asked me, Josie, about the woman thing, about the Merriam-Webster, and I look at the Merriam-Webster, and it says an adult female person, and I'm like, I tried to took your word for it that it wasn't that, I thought it was something else.
Well,
So I
there's a
took you guys'
second
word for it.
definition to it. What dictionary are you looking at? You said
Merriam-Webster.
you've gone
I'm almost.
online. In the second definition, it talks about gender, right?
It just says a woman belonging to a particular category as birth,
Hold on. Let me
occupation.
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Yeah, real quick.
Hold
Also,
on.
too, I did some research on sex, and how, and I had this conversation with Luxander, and it seemed like Luxander was saying, like, yeah, sex is from the brain, and we were agreeing at first. I thought, and I don't know how that kind of came about, and because I think even one conversation, Luxander was like, the whole conversation blew up, and I was like, no, we're doing really good. And so I don't know how.
So Matthew, hold on.
Foster a better
Yeah,
conversation.
I want that too. But I'm looking at Merriam-Webster dictionary right now, and the first definition is an adult female person, and the second is a woman belonging to a particular category, as in birth, residence, membership, or occupation, usually used in combination of councilwoman. And then you also have womankind, distinctive feminine nature. So how does that contradict with what I was saying, especially when I was talking about the categories, such as a trans woman, a cis woman?
I disagree with it. I disagree with Merriam-Webster, and I didn't see it, so I was like, maybe they changed it. I know they're probably trying to do that or something, so I was like, okay, sure. My point is just
okay, but I don't want to have the argument.
Yeah.
So I hear you're having good faith, and you know, and Luxander, Luxander, apologize.
You can call me Lux. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I just like get my tongue twisted. So Lux, for context, I was actually on the hang up with Matt last night, and Matthew called in. We talked about logic, and Matthew, the one thing that I think stopped the conversation last time that we had the conversation is you said in this call that there is a difference between gender and sex, right? You said you agree with that.
Yes, that was from the beginning. That's what my mindset was.
Okay, cool. So the statement that some women have penises and some women don't is a true statement, right? Because there's a difference between gender and sex. Right.
So if you said, so let's put it this way, right? Let's say, not because, remember I said boy and girl too. Those are also genders, right? And so that's the difference between sex and gender. So my thing, right, if you said an adult female person can have a penis, I would say no. I would say that.
Okay, so hold on. I really, this is the problem that we've been having for weeks, Matthew. I'm sorry, I'm being silly. So honey, a male is a sex and a man is a gender. And that's the problem that you keep stumbling on. We are trying to, you agree that, no. You agree that sex and gender are different, right? So the problem is that you are defining the gender of woman by the sex of female. And you are contradicting yourself. Because you are, on the one hand, stating that you believe that there's a difference between sex and gender, but then the immediate next statement that you make is that you define woman, the gender, by the sex female. Can you understand why that's frustrating?
So listen, so with this is like a girl, right? A girl is a female, but a girl is not a woman.
No, a girl is a gender of a child that has not yet grown into a woman. Like we put that on a child. We have a female child who grows up this child like is 5 years old and we impose girlness on her. Like a child, like you are personally of the opinion that a child cannot understand gender. So you should also agree that when you impose she, her pronouns on a child who's 5 years old, you are imposing a gender on them based on their sex. But you understand that gender is separate from sex. So you're contradicting yourself. And that's why this has been a very difficult, frustrating, ongoing conversation for like more than a month.
Yes. Thank you, Lux. That's right.
Yeah. So maybe help me understand the contradiction with a woman having a penis.
Right. Because a woman can be male. Because a woman is a gender. That's a societal construct around, how you look and dress and how people talk to you. Whereas sex is like what your doctor knows about your genitals and your chromosomes, maybe. I've never had my chromosomes tested. I don't know. I could be like XXXY or some shit like that. I don't know. Most people don't know, as a matter of fact. I can assume that I produce certain gametes, but I've never had that tested either. So yeah, a male can be a woman. Where are we getting this idea of woman from? Was that the question?
Yeah. When we say women, what are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about like a social group of people who have a collection of traits together and like who occupy like a social status. Like, Josie went into like a lot of detail with you on a previous call about like, you know, not fitting in with boys and not feeling comfortable growing up and being like, I'm being treated like a man and I have to perform this male role, like going into the military and doing all this hardcore masculine stuff, you know, like those things exist because society props them up. Like money exists because society props it up. Like money is a social construct, but it controls our lives. Gender is a social construct, but it controls our lives.
Mm-hmm. So what are the traits of when you say like the traits of a woman? What do you mean by sharing certain traits of women? What do you mean by that when you say that?
So it again, it's like you know how when you look at like in society, like there's categories, right? Even in the dictionary here, it's about particular categories of things, right? And so like, you know, in society, and I'm saying society, not the individual, in society, people think long hair, feminine like makeups, dresses, like soft skin, like all these like things are all like, oh yeah, that's womanness or woman, like you womanliness or womankind, those type of things, like, you know, that's kind of like the category, but those are all part of like the bimodal understanding of the gender of woman. But this is the deal, right? You don't have to have all those things to be a woman, right? There are women with short hair. There are women that like sports and like rough and tumble. They like there's all these different things. So that's why it's easier to just ask the person, "Hey, are you a woman?" Right? And then that's how you're able to do it, right? And that's how we're able to understand like what a woman is when you say,
You mean like
"Hey, are you a woman?" Yeah, you got to ask them.
You mean like you mean like a trans person or just any person you ask if they're a woman?
Any person you can ask if they're a woman or not. Like, you know, you can just say you know, it's like, hey, what is your gender identity? And they'll tell you, right? And their gender identity is gonna
about in this society where we acknowledge trans and all this stuff. You would ask that. You're not talking about in traditional society. You mean like kind of introducing that like kind of thing.
Anybody can run into this problem. I don't know if Matthew, you're like familiar with the experience of like, it's very common for women, cisgender women who are in strong leadership roles or who work on cars or who play sports. There are people who will call them men, whether they are joking or not, because society as a whole kind of has this concept of manhood and womanhood. And if you deviate from those, there are people who will attempt to basically strip you of that identity. Like, how many times have you heard people saying that Hillary Clinton is a lesbian or that Hillary Clinton is a man?
I know those jokes.
Yeah. So,
right.
You know, any person,
to a working woman and be like, "Are you a woman?"
Right. Yeah. So most of the time we use a collection of passive communication things to indicate to other people what social category we belong to, which is why you might have like a trans woman who just came out as trans, and you know, maybe she hasn't started hormones or transition yet, so maybe she's still like in her face looks what we would describe as like mannish or manly, and then she's growing out her hair and she's wearing a padded bra and she's wearing a skirt or a dress. Like, we use like gender expression to communicate what group we belong to. And like, not everybody fits in that perfectly, because there are butch women and there are butch trans women as well, who are like gender non-conforming.
I mean, I would say I'm pretty a strong man, but I would not go into a butch woman and say, "Hey, are you a woman?" I wouldn't ask that. I'm like,
right. You wouldn't do that, but you would say, "Hey, what's your pronouns?" Right? You can start there. That's completely acceptable, right? If you're not sure, like, you know, if you saw Lux, you could be like, "Hey, what's your name and what are your pronouns?"
You're talking about in this society now as we kind of are shifting, right? You're not talking about back then.
I mean, there are gender
ask pronouns.
There are.
Where maybe I'm still in the past, because like right now I wouldn't do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But you're saying now it's okay to be comfortable doing that.
No. So to be clear, most of the time this is not a relevant question. Like most of the time, most people look pretty stereotypically male or female, right? There might be a situation where you meet someone who is very androgynous in their gender presentation. Like maybe they have really short hair and they're wearing bright colored nail polish. And maybe you're like, I'm not sure what those signals are. It might be appropriate in that situation to ask what their pronouns are. Or what I always recommend is if you're wanting to ask someone's pronouns, I actually recommend that you introduce yourself with your pronouns, which gives the other person an opportunity to tell you what theirs are. Yeah, I mean, it definitely puts this person on the spot a lot less. But yeah, so basically, like, your question is asking, like, what does womanhood mean? And the answer is that it depends on the society that you live in. Like in a Muslim society, a woman is a person who covers her hair, right? But like in the West, in America, a woman is a person who has long hair. And that like can be flexible. Like it's not like we tell people you're not a woman anymore if you cut your hair. I mean, sometimes people are rude and will say things like that. But yeah, like
if a Muslim
womanhood.
If a Muslim man saw my wife, he'd probably think she was disrespectful, but a woman, but he wouldn't say she's not a woman because she's not covering her hair.
Well, yeah, but it depends on what society you live in.
Yeah, if you were in a Muslim country, right? Like the fact of the matter is, like, it's pretty easy in society that you live in. If you look around, you see most of the women covering their hair because that's what they do. Traditionally, that's a marker. That's like a marker in society that says, oh, this person is probably a woman, right? As a gender category, not as a sex, just as a gender category, right? And that's what we're trying to say. And that's why, Matthew, I've said in the beginning a couple of times on this call about the idea of a blonde-headed woman, a black woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman are all types of women, because the woman in that, and according to the dictionary too, the woman is the category of the gender that they are, just like a councilwoman is a woman, right? Because she's identifying as a councilwoman, right? So like the idea is the gender is the woman, and that's why when I say, you know, when you say sex and gender are different, and that's why the sentence that I said, some women have penises and some women don't, is a logical statement, because woman is gender and penis is sex. So, because they're different.
And just for the sake of what the topic that I'm talking about here, someone like me, maybe knuckle dragging, traditionalist Christian, you're not going to convince somebody. And I'm not saying you're wrong or right. I'm saying you're not going to convince them with type of language.
Matthew, I have to stop for you a second, right? Because we're talking about logic, right? We're talking about logic, and we've had this conversation many times about logic, right? If you fundamentally believe that there is a difference between sex and gender, the sentence that I am saying, some women have penises and some don't, is a logical statement. Is that not correct?
And I'm just playing the proverbial coyote and biting my leg off and saying, let's just say I'm illogical, right? Knuckle dragging, traditional. But
then it becomes fallacious, right? Everything outside of that premise that we talk about is no longer.
I would like to keep this contained, because Matthew, we've been talking to you about your beliefs, and I want, because it feels like a shifting of the goalpost. Like it feels like we're just about to agree with each other, but then you're deflecting to some hypothetical, like, person who's not present in this conversation, right? Like, let's keep it contained, because you describe yourself as traditional, and you describe your beliefs.
I'm not going to argue that whether I do or don't. So
is the statement correct then? Is the statement that I'm saying some women is the statement that I am saying some women have penises and some women don't, is that a logical, consistent argument or logical sentence that is correct if you believe sex and gender are different? Because that's where the hang up is. So not to you, but you do agree that the sentence is logical and you're wrong.
Right.
So
That's
you're
why I'm
just saying
allowing to
you're
say,
wrong.
okay, right. Let's just say that I'm illogical, right? And I think kind of what
No.
Luxander is
No.
saying too is like
I want to
No.
have a conversation with you, the person, right now. Don't go, oh, let's say I'm whatever. Like, I'm trying to have a conversation with
right. Okay,
you
that's
now.
fair. That's fair. And so with me,
You,
Stop.
hold on,
Matthew,
Matthew.
Matthew.
I really need
Yeah,
to
please.
clarify this with you.
Go ahead.
You have an internally inconsistent view. You had a conversation with Josie about logic last night. You have an internally inconsistent view that you need to confront and that we are trying to get you to confront. If you believe that sex and gender are different, then you must believe that some trans women can have penises or that some women can have penises. Like you're literally flip-flopping from one sentence to the next, unless you're just claiming that you don't care about logic, in which case, like,
No.
okay, we
So
don't really have a
let's give another
conversation.
example.
No,
Let's
stick with the
say,
example that we're giving you.
Yeah, Matthew, this is a skeptic channel, right? The line is about logic and reason and reality of how we speak.
Mhm.
And that is very important to the truth of what we're trying to go to. Because if we can't fundamentally believe the logical truths of around the world around us, how can we continue to
Mhm.
have a conversation when the foundational beliefs of what we're talking about are not accounted for? Right? How can we have a
All right.
conversation about playing basketball if we don't agree that gravity exists? Right? You can't do it, right? It's like, no, gravity isn't here, so now we're going to talk about basketball. No, we have to figure out why you don't believe gravity exists. That's where we
That's
are
fair.
in this conversation.
So this is where my hang up is then. So I'll ask this question. This is where my on the Ask the Trans show. My question here is, why is that if gender, let's say for example, gender is not connected to sex in the way of, genitalia, why is it that when somebody feels that they are female, when they feel that they're a woman, they want to have female body parts?
Because of gender dysphoria, which is an internal mental state.
Which we've discussed in the
Okay, so
previous show. And this is why, Matthew, this statement is so important, because if we started at this point, then we could have went to that question in a very logical way, right? Because at the end of the day, for you to ask that question in good faith, you have to agree with the logical statement that some women have penises and some don't. And if you agree with that statement and say, yes, that's logically consistent, then we can add the other layer of, if that's the case, then why do some trans women have bottom surgery, right? Which is a completely different question that is based on the foundation of the logical understanding that some women can have penises and some don't, right? Because gender dysphoria is a completely different conversation about the medical understanding of how we view our bodies, outside of the truth, the fundamental truth that all trans women agree and trans people agree to, is that some women have penises and some don't. Does
Because
that make
plenty of
sense?
trans
So
people don't want surgery.
when you say
Like, to
that,
be clear,
when you Mhm.
like,
Please, go ahead.
plenty of trans people are not interested in having surgery. Like, we all agree that a trans woman can have a penis, and then, like, that's the gender conversation. But then the gender dysphoria thing is that, yes, to some people, they don't feel whole as a woman because there is a societal expectation, or maybe it's just an internal, like, we talked about the brain body map distinction already, that, like,
Yes.
some people have like this feeling like they should have certain genitals, right? And that is
Yeah.
that's a separate thing, because there are plenty of trans people who don't want surgery or who don't want hormones. So we,
That's right.
like, that's two different conversations, and I'm happy to have that, but like, we are fundamentally stuck on this whole, like, you seem to not you seem to state that you believe a difference in sex and gender, but then in practice you don't believe that there's a difference.
So here's the thing, and this is where maybe we can find some common ground here. So when you say some women can have penises and some don't, I say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I find it logically inconsistent when every time, for me, and you're telling me that this is not all the case, the majority of the time I would say that when somebody is wanting to transition, they also want to transition physically as well, meaning they want to have female body parts when they identify as a woman.
It's easier to socially integrate if you have the expected physiology.
And Matthew, it's not logically.
I'm not saying I don't accept
it's
that
not
idea.
okay.
Hold on. Let's say I'm not saying I do or I don't accept that idea, but do you see how there can be in someone's mind saying, okay, I hear what you're saying about some women can have penises, but that seems logically inconsistent when this happens, right? And then you can
I think you only know like 4 trans
question.
people. I think the problem is that you only know like 4 trans people. You know one trans person who's had bottom surgery. You know one trans person who wants bottom surgery. You know another trans person who doesn't want bottom surgery. I don't actually know if you've spoken directly to Arden or not, so I can't include her in this. But like, so you know a grand total of 3 trans people who all have like who are all in slightly different places on their personal like I want surgery or not. The overwhelming majority of trans people do not get bottom surgery. Like
That's
the overwhelming majority.
I hear what you're saying, but do you understand how I would see that as logically inconsistent?
Matthew,
if a tiny minority want surgery, like the tiny minority who want surgery invalidate the entire premise that sex and gender are distinct.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm asking
Matthew,
you the question.
This is the problem. Answer Lux's question because like what you're this is why this logical inconsistency ruins everything, right? Because if you can just say the logical statement that sex and gender is different, so therefore a woman can have a penis and some women don't. Some women have penises, some women don't. That is the logical statement that follows after you identify that there's a difference between sex and gender. If you can agree with that point, it doesn't matter what a trans woman does with their body. They're still women.
Well, I can't agree with it when I find logical inconsistencies. And if you
that's not a logical inconsistency. Those are
totally
two different things. Those are two different things. You see, Matthew, you're conflating two different things because of your logical inconsistency. Because it doesn't matter what a trans person does with their body.
There are cisgender people who seek these procedures. Like I know cisgender women who get a mastectomy. They get their tits completely cut off, which we understand to be like a gender affirming surgery for men. But like there are cis people who also are interested in these procedures. So like that is, if that doesn't show that gender is distinct from sex, then I don't know what does. Because if you can be cisgender and be like, yeah, I would like to get surgery that changes my body in a way that is typically gendered, but it's like I'm changing my sex features, you know, like some trans people wanting to change their bodies does not invalidate the logic of the premise that sex and gender are different. Like Josie was saying, like if we understand that sex and gender are different, then it literally doesn't matter what anybody does with their body because that is not a statement about their gender.
Right.
Okay. But just because things are different doesn't mean everything else can fall in the category that it's different. So, for example, if I said
what
trunks are, pardon?
So I don't understand.
It's just that was
statement.
word salad, and it made no fucking sense. That's why we're confused.
Yeah. Sorry, let me explain. Let me explain. So let's say I say trunks are different from noses, right? So elephants have trunks, and certain animals have noses. And you say, well, trunks are different from noses. You say, yeah, trunks are different from noses. So then you say, then does that mean cat has trunks? And it's like, no.
So
like, that doesn't.
Wait, you see, this is why you need to
you're
take
doing
logic
a completely different thing here.
Yeah, it's like saying some trees have coconuts. So trees that have coconuts are only trees with coconuts can have coconuts. I mean, sorry, only trees can have coconuts, right? But the reality is, the true statement is, some trees have coconuts, but having coconuts doesn't have to make you a tree, right? So some
it doesn't
trees have
solely
coconuts.
define a tree.
Right. So some trees have coconuts and some trees don't, but that still makes them trees. So there you go. There is a equivalent logical statement to some women have penises and some don't. Some trees have coconuts and some trees don't. It's the same logical consistency across the board. Does that make sense?
No, well, the coconut thing makes sense, but I think when it refers to women,
now apply the coconut. So instead of tree, use the word woman, and instead of coconut, use the word penis. and then repeat that sentence, and that is what logical consistency means.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and like I said, this is what I mean by fostering better conversation, right? Because it could just be, we had this conversation before, that I just have some cognitive dissonance or whatever it is, right?
Matthew, no, it's a lack of understanding of logic, right? Because the statement, you can believe very easily that some trees have coconuts and some trees don't. You understand that. You're like, yeah, of course, duh, right, yeah. And what we are saying is, in this conversation, the tree is the gender of a person, and the coconut is the sex of that person, right? So therefore, to be logically consistent, you would be able to replace the word tree with gender and then the coconut with sex, and then therefore both of those things are logically sound, meaning that that's what we're trying to say.
I think where maybe you might be winning me is where you talked about the gender dysphoria thing, and that some people are not willing to have gender affirming surgery or whatever it is. So maybe we can go more on that, because the tree thing I'm not tracking.
But no, you are refusing to track it, Matthew, and that's what I think you're having a problem
the reason why,
with. It's like,
let me explain the reason why I'm not tracking
tree
the tree
analogy
thing.
works so well that you are like mad.
The reason why I'm not tracking the tree thing, because the tree is not saying, another tree is not saying, hey, look, well, I want to identify as a coconut tree, so I want to implant coconuts into my in my body or whatever.
You fucking can though. You can. Have you heard of the 40 fruit tree? You literally can graft different tree branches onto one tree, 100%. And then it can produce numerous fruits.
Yeah.
But a tree is not asking to do that, though. A tree is not saying, I want to do that.
Sure, sure, okay.
Yeah, but that's Matthew. Now you've reached the point of absurdity, right? Now we're arguing from absurdum.
Hold on,
right?
I don't think we're jumping the gun too quickly. I think you guys may have me with the whole gender dysphoria thing. I'm like, let's talk about that. Okay. Because trees don't do the thing. We realize that.
Do you have a question about gender dysphoria? Like, let's stop abstracting out. We had fun with our tree moment and the trunk. By the way, a trunk is a nose. Exactly. It's a rectangle square situation. Not all noses are trunks, but all trunks are noses. Anyway, that's a different logical question.
It's the same logic. It's the same logic. It's like some noses can be trunks and some noses can't. Like, it's the same thing, Matthew. Even when we use your analogy, you refuse to listen to the fact that we are saying some women can have penises and some women can't, is the same logical consistency. That's why we are getting so frustrated with you, Matthew. Like, we don't want to have a conversation about gender.
Luxander is going with this. Let's kind of go there. So,
you're testing my patience, Matthew. You are testing my patience because we've been on the phone with you for 30 minutes and we have been talking about the same stupid sentence this entire call. And we have given you.
You can go on.
And Matthew, we have to, though. That's the deal. Like, this is a secular channel. We are talking about logic and reason. Well, I mean, we're skeptics. We try to talk about things about reality. We try to figure out the truth about things.
We had a good point about trees, and I was like, well, trees are not asking these questions. So now I'm like, okay, you can win my mind, but I'm just saying, why, when somebody is asking, hey, I want to be a woman, give me female body parts, that's to me where the inconsistency is. Now you guys are saying, hey, look, not all people that want to do that, and there's this thing called gender dysphoria, and that works with that. And I'm kind of wondering, I know what gender dysphoria is, but I'm wondering where the dysphoria comes from. You guys are saying it comes from society, and now I'm wondering, is that a brain thing?
No.
Okay.
It's a brain thing.
Okay.
Long story short, thank you so much, Matthew, for this invigorating conversation. We are going to have to wrap it up after this because we usually end up going on a long time with you, but we want to make sure that we get to the rest of our callers for today. So gender dysphoria is a neurological phenomenon. We diagnose it by psychological examination, basically like asking people questions. Gender dysphoria is considered clinical distress as a result of your sex and gender not being in line with each other. And most of the time, that is resolved by taking hormones or social transition or some combination thereof. You know, for young kids, it's a social transition thing. Some people want bottom surgery and some don't. And some trans people don't experience a clinical level of distress. There's a whole conversation to be had about the fact that we pathologize this and that you have to have psychological testing in order to have access to basic medical care that any cisgender person can get. But that's the situation as it is now. That's the understanding that the medical establishment run by cisgender people has decided that trans people have to be diagnosed with clinical distress when their gender and their sex are not in alignment with each other. Some trans people feel that alignment can be resolved.
I don't mean to pause you there, Luxander, but that's exactly what you said. Gender and sex are not aligned with each other.
Yeah, like if you were assigned, like when you were assigned male at birth, but you feel that you are a woman, that's like the gender and sex thing not being in alignment, like because you perceive yourself as wanting to belong to this social category, like, and you can't fit into that social category, and then transition is the thing that helps resolve that sensation.
And now there's a neurological association with that. What is that about? So is the person neurologically? Pardon?
I prefer chocolate over vanilla. I don't know what part of my brain is involved in that, but I do have that strong preference, right? I really hate coconut. I keep trying. I fucking hate coconut, right? We don't know. We can't find it. It's not like a gay gene. We can't find what it is in the brain that makes people feel strongly that they want to be associated with men or women or neither. Like, we don't know where that comes from. We will never find that because it is not possible to find.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is now somebody is desiring to be female or has female parts. Let's say not desiring to be female, but has female parts. Is that also the neurological issue as well?
I mean, where else is it coming from?
Right. Okay. So
everything about you and who you are comes from your brain. Your gender comes from your brain. Like, your personal understanding of who you are, what you like, what you want to be called, what group you want to hang out with, all of that shit is in your brain. And we're not going to start dissecting people's brains to find out where the trans part is or anything. We just have to understand and accept at some point that this is a natural human variation that has been in existence for thousands of years. You keep calling yourself a traditionalist, but trans women have been drinking horse piss for thousands of years to feminize their bodies. Like, literally, we've existed for forever. Your traditional... hold on. I'm not done, Matthew. Your quote-unquote traditional understanding of binary gender is based on the fact that Nazis burned all of the books about us. Your knowledge and understanding of traditional binary sex is literally fascistic. It is brainwashing bullshit based on actually the Nazis deciding that trans people don't exist, when we have existed across time for thousands of years, across every fucking culture on this planet. I'm done with this call. Can you please hang up on him right now? I'm done with it.
Absolutely.
Call back later. I'm done with you right now.
Call back later. Bye. Lux with the spice rack. Okay.
It's been more than a month.
Frustrating.
It's been more than a month with this guy. I'm tired of it.
It has. It is. Now, you know what, though? One of the good things that came out of that, though, is now I can start talking about coconut trees and falling out of them. K-High reference for the win.
I just want to remind everybody that you should like the stream because I'm frustrated now. And you should give us money. We'll read your $5 plus super chat.
Yes, $5 super chats for the spiciest of Lux. I
am so tired of him interrupting us too. He was so polite when Ben was on. I was listening to the call like 2 weeks ago. He was so polite and so deferent when fucking Ben was on, but he interrupts us constantly. Like, no, I'm not dealing with it anymore. Okay, he can call back later.
He can call back later. We spent a lot of time with you, Matthew, and fucking take a logic class. Go on YouTube and go do a fucking basic 30-minute YouTube class on what a fucking logical argument is. Like, it's like, come on, like I could not have spoon fed it any better. And you were absolutely right, like around 100% of the time. So we're gonna move on to we have 4 more calls on the line, and then we'll get to your super chats. I'm going to try to whip through these and get them done. So with that, we'll go on to May from California, wanting to talk about passing and the toxicity and problems. So hello, May, how are you?
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me okay? I've been having like issues with my phone.
Oh, it
Totally
sounds
fine.
clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, maybe it's not the best time to talk about this because of Luxander's rant there. But
no, you're gonna help me calm down.
I've
This is gonna be a great call.
Yeah.
I've actually had a really interesting question because I, as a trans woman, and this is more of a binary trans question, so I'm not sure if it will be able to answer it or talk about it well, because that's not its experience. But so I myself am very interested in passing and very interested in sort of getting all of the surgeries and having the quote unquote, like,
Sure.
I guess we would call it like the traditional transition, if you will. I don't know.
Yeah.
And like for me, that's kind of a personal choice and like who I am, because I legitimately feel like I'm in the wrong body, and I don't usually use the trans experience. Like when I describe it, I use that as my personal description of reality, not like an example of the trans experience as a whole. But I felt judgment in trans communities when I talk about this and my own experience with wanting to pass and all this. And I feel like I'm being judged. Like people are calling me shallow. They're calling me like I'm perpetuating a toxic view of transition. And I felt really judged for it, even though it's kind of a personal choice. And I know this is like something, a bit of a hot take that we have in the trans community, because, you know, not all of us are binary. So it makes sense. Yeah. But I don't know. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it, because I have felt really judged for expressing that. It's not just a trans woman thing. I think trans men have also judged me for this. I just want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, well, May, I am also a binary trans woman with severe gender dysphoria, socially and physically. So for me, I also am compelled to get all the surgeries that I like to make myself feel comfortable, as well as my femininity on that scale is, you know, very, I wouldn't say it's super hyper feminine, but some would say that it is, because I'm pretty feminine. It's like it's hyper enough that you see it at all times. And how I express myself. And I just want to say, yeah, and I just want to say nobody should judge you for your personal body choices and what you want to do with your body. And anybody who's doing that has their own demons that they have to confront, because that is not okay. Is, as a trans community, I think that we should be on the line of, hey, we have autonomy over our bodies, right? But we have bodily choice on what we want to do with our bodies, and no one should be able to stop us from being able to do what makes us feel good. Just because some other people may feel, you know, some form. I've had this, you know, the word, and I say this, right, because we have to recognize, May, that there is something called passing privilege. Okay. And passing privilege is when you are able to walk through society, and I have passing privilege, and I acknowledge that I have passing privilege, that I can go through society, walk into pretty much any establishment of my choice, and completely freely use the facilities. I will not be hassled. For many years, early in my transition, it wasn't so easy, but after years of transition and, you know, my own growth and who I am as a person, I've gotten that passing privilege. And we have to understand that some of our siblings do not have passing privilege, nor want passing privilege, right? Because there's also that too, where it's like, no, I want to be seen as a trans person. I want to be visibly trans. That's who I am, and that's what makes me happy. And that's also valid and amazing as well. So a lot of times cis people also have this problem too, right? Like somebody who is conventionally attractive, right, wears all the makeup and all of the things. Let's say I'm going to use cis women, for example, are able to browse the cover of magazines, win beauty pageants, and then there are other cis women that don't have that conventional attractiveness for whatever reason,
Right.
and there is a lot of cis women who despise and hate, you know, cis women that are conventionally attractive, the Regina Georges of the world, right? You know, the people who are just like, oh my God, she's so pretty, I fucking hate her, right? I've heard that a
Right.
lot, right? You know, and it's just something
I kind of,
that
I get that vibe sometimes, like when I've heard about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really interesting comparison to make. But you're
Yeah.
right about,
And
you know, pretty privilege and passing privilege. Like that is something we have to acknowledge.
yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
sort of like they
Absolutely.
didn't choose to not pass. Like I didn't necessarily choose to be able to pass. It just sort of, I worked hard at it and it turned out that way, I guess. But
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
there is a reality where I worked hard at it and it didn't turn out that way. Right.
Yes.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I couldn't see myself if I were in that position being mad at somebody who does pass, I guess, is sort of where I'm going. This is a pretty like
exactly.
binary, like limited call. So sorry for
Yeah,
taking
I
up
mean,
the conversation.
it might surprise you. It might surprise you to learn that once upon a time I was heavily invested in passing as male because I felt like that would be safer, or I felt like that would be, I mean, I just hated being gendered female so much that I tried really hard and it was not a good look for me. Like when my hair was super short, didn't look good on me. You know, I was really putting a lot of effort into something that was just not happening for me. And like being a non-binary person, you kind of have to accept at some point that there is no such thing as passing as non-binary because people are always going to guess that you're one or the other unless you happen to live in a very progressive area where people might just naturally call you they, them if they feel unsure of what you are trying to present as or something. But yeah, no, and I agree with you that it is toxic and that it is also tied into that like look of like attractiveness, you know, like that passing and attractiveness are kind of conflated in a way. And so probably, yeah, there is a lot of jealousy of like, oh, why can't I look like her? You know, why is it so easy for her, but I have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for FFS because my eyebrows are jutting 2 inches out in front of my face. Like, obviously, that's like our hyperfixation on those features makes them so exaggerated to us. I personally think that a lot of it is just because people feel like it's easier to be like lash out at other trans people, like as opposed to dealing with the broader societal oppression that we all kind of deal with. You know, like it's easier to mean girl other trans girls than it is to challenge like the patriarchal concept of, you know, passing means you get social acceptance and passing means you're attractive. You know, I know a lot of trans girls who are like, yeah, I'm clocky as hell and I'm hot as hell. And I think it would be better if we worked toward like a community where we're like, yeah, you know, let's not be jealous of each other. You know, some people can afford FFS. Some people scrape together the money to get FFS and then they are poor 2 years later, right? So we can't judge people based on like, yeah, their transition goals or what they have access to. Yeah.
And May, and this is something that I've experienced in my own life, right? Like I have been in spaces where trans girls will be like, "You're one of us," and try to pull me to the Regina George's Mean Girl table, right? And what I do and what my responsibility
I think like high key, we all have been through that, like Regina George phase. Like the Mean Girl phase.
So what?
Yeah,
and then what you have to do is you have to take responsibility and shut that shit down, right? Like I've been in situations where a Blair White type of person that's a trans medicalist that will point at non-binary people and make fun of them and say, "Oh, they're not like us." It's like, no, screw you, you're the problem in our community and you need to be outcast, right? Because at the end of the day, that's our opportunity when we're in those circles to stand up for our siblings as a community, as a family. And that's what we do. And that's what I do all the time, right? In fact, I do this, and I don't recommend that everybody does this. I walk around and with my when I have my fanny pack, I have a little sticker on it that has a trans heart on it. And I wear that out in public. And I do it and when I'm wearing a blazer, I'll wear a trans flag pin on my blazer. So when I go in the professional spaces, I can actually see the eyes of the people that I'm talking to look down at that trans flag and approach me and talk to me differently. Because I do that on my own just so I can understand the visible trans aspect that my siblings have to deal with on a daily basis, because I know I live in that privilege, and it's my responsibility when I'm in a safe space to proclaim I'm a trans woman here, right? Because that is important for people to know that trans people can look like anybody, and that is an important aspect that people need to understand as well. And to do that only when it's safe. Like you don't have to spill your tea across the streets of New York, but it is one of those things where it's something to think about. And I'll tell you this, May. The fact that we're even having this conversation speaks very highly of the fact that you are acknowledging and understanding the privilege that you have, and just making sure when people have that judgment, you're never going to be able to take away people's judgment. You're never going to be able to take people's jealousy away. But what you got to do is just continue to walk through the world and continue the fight for our community as a whole, and don't isolate, right? That's really what it comes down to. But yeah, it doesn't feel great. And there's a lot of healing that happens in our community. Just for example,
it's interesting because like there were times when even people with like that privilege feel the same way. You know what I mean? Like they have felt that same, like, oh my gosh, am I going to pass? Oh my gosh, am I going to look like this? Am I going to look like that? Am I not going to pass? Am I going to be okay being clocky? So we've been like in the same boat. So it's kind of hurtful to have people kind of act like that. But thank you for your perspective and your call, and I'll take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a short call, much more different in tone than the rest.
Fine. No, May, and I appreciate you doing this, and and sometimes it's good to just have a conversation with those people who feel that you feel judgment from, and be like, hey, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about how we feel, and what can I do to make you feel better, right? Those conversations can help open a lot of eyes. So for example, with Lux and I, like, I've had trauma of being called it's right, and it's one of those things that I had to overcome myself to be able to acknowledge other humans that use it's as a self fulfilling understanding of who they are. And I had to get over that. I had to get over myself, right? And there's a lot of trans people walking around the world right now who can't get over their own traumas to treat their siblings with respect. And it's hard, because hurt people, and that's why we got to make sure that we stand together as a community.
It's actually, because of Lux's videos that I was able to get better with it, because I kind of felt the same way, but because of Lux's streams that I was able to get better at it. So that's so true.
Yeah.
Thank you for the call. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I just wanted a quick,
thank you. I appreciate you.
Nice conversation. Right. And I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening or wherever you are.
Yes.
Thanks, May.
Absolutely.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
That was a good call. And it's a good call talking about like inner trans conflict that we have within our own community, and it's really hard to have those conversations with a bunch of cis people watching. And
Maybe
and I know that there's cis people in this chat. I know there's cis people in this chat. I know I like to think that you are all queer unicorns in this chat, but I know I know that some of you aren't, and I'm okay with this.
I'm still so red. I'm just like, I can feel the heat in my cheeks from yelling at Matthew. Ugh.
Oh my gosh, I know. I was mean. I because I gave up on that call like way before you did, and I was like,
Yeah.
"You have it. It's yours. You could take
I mean,
it."
I was pretty mad from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, how many more times are we going to do this with you? Oh my God.
I know, and we give him so much time. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. So let's get through these calls. So we have Escon, they them from California. And they have a nice if my thing clicks. Oh, there it goes. Hello, Escon. How are
Hi.
you?
I am good.
Hi. What do you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, so I will be starting a PhD program, and I will be moving to a new place. I'll be surrounded by all these students and professors who are going to be a huge part of my life for the next 5 or 6 years. And I know how to assert my pronouns and stuff online. Like, I have no problem putting them like in my signature or whatever. I have no problem correcting people online. But I'm worried about how to get that across in person without making it seem like I'm just annoying and it's like my entire personality.
Go for it, Lex.
Yeah, I mean, you do always kind of run that risk of you don't have any control over other people's perceptions. You know, we could do everything 100% perfect, and someone would still take issue with it because some people just have this association with they them pronouns as meaning like, oh, well, you're going to be a problem. I've experienced that before, so you could potentially go to your advisor or someone who's like in charge of the program or who's part of the directing of the program and ask them what their advice is, or if you have a name tag that you're going to have to wear around, like I know some colleges or some universities, they have you wear like a lanyard thing. If you can put pronouns on that, that could be useful. And you can there's always the whole like, yeah, this is my name, these are my pronouns, I'm really looking forward to working with you. There are some people who are going to take that badly. So it might be good to talk to your advisor or director beforehand, just in case anyway, to make sure that you have that backing so that you can establish with them, like, I am not going to be a problem about this. I just want to have this be like a normal part of, yes, I'm about to be working with these people for 6 years. Like if there are people who are going to be jerks about it, they're going to be jerks about it no matter what you do. There are going to be people who see your pronouns on your name tag and they're going to be like scoffing at you and whatever, even if you never make a big deal out of it, even if you never say anything. So one thing that I've kind of had to do is like let go of like whether other people are going to be upset. And if you're in California, the like statistical likelihood of you running into somebody who's going to be a jerk about it is like fairly low anyway. But those are my recommendations, like talking to somebody who's in charge, maybe giving them like hey, could you introduce me when like we all get together as a group, like, and have them casually just be like, this is Escon, they use they them pronouns and they're going to be working in this part of the lab or whatever. Like, it can help to squash any of that adversarial nature that some people have about it if they know that the person who's in charge already has your back. So like if someone official introduces you, then they're like, oh, well, I guess I can't say anything if I want to continue to be part of this program. That's a way to it's almost like a little bit of a power play, which I think is okay sometimes.
Yeah, I guess my concern about that is how would you know that your advisor is not a transphobe, basically? Like, how would you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, you don't want to just go and say it and then be stuck in an advisor makes you, right?
I mean, sometimes you got to put it all out there. I do recommend, like, if it is possible for it to come up in casual conversation, talking about someone else. If you're like, oh gosh, Elliot Page has got this new movie coming out and I'm so looking forward to seeing it. That's actually a true statement, by the way, everybody in the chat. I'm going to watch it next month. It's called Close to You. It's actually a trans mask story about like a trans masked dude doing the, coming home for Christmas kind of thing. So yeah, you can perhaps in some kind of, casual way. And I usually recommend this for like parents. So it might be a little bit more difficult with your advisor. But I mean, again, it's California. So, what's the likelihood that this person is going to be a jerk about it? You can tell them,
I know
like,
that's
hey,
like
this isn't... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know that's a view a lot of people have about California, but a lot of, like, old white men in California
Sure.
are surprisingly conservative. Because it's really easy to be conservative when you're in California and you don't have as many conservative policies actually, doing anything to you. It's really easy to think that they're all really good policies. And also, a lot of my cohort is, like, international students and students from other states. So, like, for example, I have no idea how students from, like, Ukraine and India, like, what they would be likely to even know about trans issues, because I have no idea really what the culture is surrounding that sort of thing.
And Escon, I would also recommend too is I guarantee you that there's probably an LGBTQ center on campus, right? And you could probably go there and talk to some of the students that are already probably going through what you're going through, because a lot, college is a great place for you to be able to come out and be who you are and who yourself. So you're not going to be the only one probably in your school. I can guarantee that are actually, no, I'm coming to college to live my truth and this is who I'm going to be. I would really go there and talk and see what the experiences are and see how and make friends. And, having that sense of community will help you, even if you may be in a class where you may be the only trans person in the room, right? Like having that community on campus will, I think, make it easier for you to be able to, be yourself in a place where there's a safe place to be.
Oh, that's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're talking to your advisor, you can also be like, hey, this isn't a big deal. I don't plan to make a big deal about this. I just want to make sure that if there's conflict around this, I'm just making sure to cover my bases. I'm not the one who's instigating the conflict. I just want to treat this like it's normal. Like this, it's just like introducing my name. Like I expect people to call me by my correct name. So I want people to call me by my correct pronouns, right? You can always downplay it a little bit. Like it's probably a big deal to you, just like it's a big deal to a lot of trans people that we want people to use our correct pronouns. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having these conversations with people we barely know. But yeah, if, just being like, hey, I know that sometimes people treat this like a big deal. I'm just making sure that I get ahead of it if there's any kind of conflict or harassment about this in the future, that like you as my advisor are aware beforehand, and that like I'm not trying to instigate those issues, because like you said, you don't ever know if that advisor is going to be the best person on your side. And if you go to the LGBTQ center or the LGBTQ group, then they might know, oh, this professor is really kind of a jackass, or, oh, that guy is, he doesn't care. He's going to be just fine. Yeah. So any community resources you can get a hold of.
Yeah. And most colleges are pretty safe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for the advice.
And good
Bye-bye.
luck. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye. Yeah. It's like community. It's always the answer, right? Like go find your people. Go
Strength
find
in numbers.
Yes. Yeah,
Hate together strong.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. So we have friend of the show, Naresh, calling in from the Czech Republic. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Kind of nervous,
Good.
but
Yes.
I'm good.
Yeah, well, thank you for calling.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for taking me.
Yeah. So how can we help you? What do you want to talk about?
So I was wondering if you have any opinions on whether we should distinguish between singular and plural, not they, them, but themselves, specifically that form.
Oh. Yeah, I keep punting the non-binary questions to you, Lex, and I hope you're not okay.
That's
I
okay.
guess you're okay. I hope you're okay with that.
I mean, I typically do. I actually, my Google Chrome on my computer autocorrects every time I try to type themself. It changes it to themselves, and I had to tell it to shut the hell up because I know what I'm typing. Yeah, like I don't think it really is, of consequence most of the time, but that's my preferred format is like I can't distinguish singular or plural with just they them, but I can make a distinction themself versus themselves. So yeah, like I don't think it should be part of the APA style guide or anything, but that is my personal preference. Like, yeah, let's make a distinction where possible, since we know in this instance that we're talking about one individual person. I mean, it's interesting though, because we do pluralize the verb. Like we conjugate the verb plural though. So yeah, I mean, I guess it just super depends on how
English
nitpicky
is
you
a
want to be.
hard language.
It's so
It's
dumb.
almost 11 p.m. by the way now for me. So I'm just thinking about how is it a verb now?
Yeah, well, we say like they are going, and instead of they is going, like we still conjugate it as a plural.
Yeah, I thought you meant like they being a verb. That got me confused.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I was talking about this with Faya on Discord before that's actually when I decided to call in, and she said something like she thinks it could be good to pluralize it for people who we know go by they them pronouns, and not pluralize it for people of unknown pronouns. That it could be a good distinction. I think that's kind of unnecessarily complicated. I think it makes more sense to just go by whether it's one person or multiple.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Like that creating like a rules for which context to do it is like a little bit silly. Like if we're talking about a singular person whose gender we don't know because somebody left their phone on the table, I think it would be fair to say themself. And then like for a person whose gender we know but who uses they them pronouns, probably let's use themself. And then when we're talking about a group, themselves makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Like if we're trying to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also, just to throw a little shade because this is boring as fuck. One of the I basically decided to call in or even ask about this because I hear people from this channel say themselves for a single person. Especially, I think Arden. I remember having used it for both someone who goes by they them and someone of unknown pronouns or unknown gender. So
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pay more attention when I'm typing. Like if I'm typing, I'm gonna pay a lot of attention. When I'm talking, it's just gonna be whatever the hell comes out of my mouth. Like I honestly don't pay that close of attention when I'm talking.
Yeah, and I
which is not great because I'm a public
severely
speaker.
doubt that people are not going to like correct you most of the time. It's like, you're just using.
I get needlessly nitpicky, but it was the only thing I could ever think of to call with to this
That's okay.
Hey, I appreciate it, and thank you for letting us know that yes, English is incredibly needlessly complicated, and you helped us prove that with this one question.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, Naresh. I appreciate you. All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right. And
nitty-gritty.
we have the nitty-gritty, like, things that have to be talked about. Those are things that we all think about every now and then. Just be like, wait, is it themselves or them? It's like, oh no, is it themselves or themselves? Oh no, and then you have an identity crisis because of a sentence, and it's just a big mess.
Jeez Louise.
All right, and this is our last caller of the day, Alex from Ohio. Advice about coming out to conservative and religious families. How are you, Alex? And what would you like to speak about? Oh, wait, it didn't click. I'm sorry. There it goes. Hi, Alex. I apologize.
No, you're okay. I started talking, and then I was like, "Wait, I didn't
Yes.
hear the beat."
Yeah.
Somebody said there was
Yes.
going to be a beat.
Yes, you followed the instructions. Thank you.
So, anyways, I am 38 and started HRT just a little over a year ago, and have been working towards transitioning, and have not at all come out to my family in any way. So I'll give you a little bit of background. I've been married also for 16 years, and
Nice.
my wife took it wonderfully. She is
Oh,
super
great.
supportive. She's wonderful. She's actually like, oh, thank God I'm actually married to a woman now. It's so much better.
That's amazing.
So,
I'm happy for you.
yeah, I'm very, very fortunate in that. And all my friends that I've come out to have been very supportive. But for my side of the family, I grew up hyper religious. I wasn't allowed to watch Scooby Doo or like the Smurfs because those could be demonic in some way. Um, it it was just like
Yeah.
a very, very religious family, and still is. And then on my in-law side, like the whole when Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light nonsense happened, uh, the Easter after that, I was talking to my father-in-law, and we had a huge conversation. It was hours long about the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, but it boiled down to him saying, essentially, no, this is actually quote, trans people are a cancer on society and need to be removed as quickly as possible before it spreads.
Oof.
So,
I'm sorry. That's awful.
yeah, and like what's really funny is like when he was saying that to me, was the like I was going in for hormone therapy like the next week. So he didn't know what was happening,
Yikes.
but yeah,
Yeah.
so I have some struggles in where and how to come out to all these people, and have no clue like where to start, or I don't know. I think another thing with my family is we like to sweep everything under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I get that too.
when I was talking to my therapist about it, the one thing that I like discovered was that I think if I told my parents, that they would just pretend it didn't happen almost. And so like, yeah, I just don't know where to go with this. If I'm really scared that I'm going to have to reject my family because they're not going to be about
Yeah.
it. And yeah, I just need some advice, I guess. Also, I'm so
Sure.
happy that I get to talk to you guys. I have been trying
Yeah.
for like 3 weeks now, and I keep getting it late
Aw.
because people like Matthew take up the
Yeah.
entire time.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Sorry
We
about
tried
that,
not to let him
Alex.
go
That's
on
our
today.
fault. Yeah,
No, it's not your fault.
we
It's a great time to watch people like that just completely falter when it comes to their own reasoning because they just can't admit that they're wrong. So,
Yeah, the coconut
anyways,
tree broke his brain.
yeah, it was great.
Anyways. Yeah. So Alex, I will come with this question from a personal place. I grew up in conservative Texas, small town Texas, rural, incredibly religious. Was raised Catholic, later Pentecostal, and it was really hard. I'm also 38 myself. I came out a little over 4 years ago. And so I also came out late as well, because of a lot of, I'm sure the reasons why we come out late. It's roughly the same thing. It sounds like you're either breathing into the phone or there's wind outside. So just making sure that we're good there. No, it's okay. So I will tell you, when I came out, it was incredibly hard. But I will say this: the reason I came out to my family was for the fact is I was an adult woman with my own life, and regardless, are you outside, Alex, or like I'm not sure if I hear the wind still. So
No, I'm
so
literally just sitting at
basically,
my office. I don't know how to.
oh, okay.
Maybe it's my breathing.
Okay,
I don't
sorry.
know.
Yeah,
Well,
it might be your breathing.
Maybe you're breathing. I think
You
you're
have a very
breathing close to the
sensitive
mic, which is fine.
microphone.
Yeah, which is fine.
Is there?
Yes, yeah. It is. It's fine. It's a little further away, but it's fine. But so for my family, I had to make a point in my mind, which was this decision. If they don't accept me, fine. I'm an adult woman and I can live on my own. I don't need their support. It's fine. Or if they accept me, then great. I get to be a part of their lives and I get to keep my family. And I also made the decision to tell my family after I was already 2 months on hormones, because I didn't want my mother to try to talk me out of it. I wanted her to be like, I'm like, sorry, I already got the prescriptions. Like I'm on a regimen. A doctor is giving me this. You can't talk me out of this. You're not a medical professional. Sorry, mom, I'm on them, and so sometimes there's a value of like, I took care of this. I wanted to make sure I didn't tell you until I was 100% sure myself and all of that type of stuff. Right. So there was a little bit of that decision that I had to make. And my family took it really hard. I didn't talk to my mom for about a year and a half. I didn't talk to my sister for about a year. And that was really hard. I was not expecting my sister to take that route. And then my biological father completely disowned me and no longer speaks to me, which is fine. We were already on the rocks anyway. No loss to me. It's fine. He was a dick. And so I had to be patient because my family didn't understand the idea of what was to be trans, and it had to just happen. And over time, they realized it's like, ugh, she's trans, and there's nothing we can do about it. And they had to think about it in that context, which is kind of narcissistic. Think about, oh, I guess there's nothing we can do. It's like, of course, there's nothing you can do. It's who I am. It's not anything to do with you. And it's not easy. It's really hard because I had to be confronted with the choice of they may never want to talk to me again. And that's a decision that had to happen because like after a year or two of hormones, like it's kind of hard to hide it. Like it's like, especially when you're growing out your hair and you're getting your secondary sex characteristics, like it's kind of hard to hide it. And there's a point, and this is something to consider as well. I'm glad you have a therapist to talk this through too. There's a point where if you hold off for too long, they'll be upset that you never told them sooner. Because there is that too, right? Where it's like, why didn't you tell me earlier? Like, especially if they're accepting, right? And they have the opportunity to take it in. So it's like one of those things too, where you have to really weigh out those options. And I say this to you as, 38-year-old woman that's been married for 16 years, that has probably a family and your own stability. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to be able to live your life independently regardless, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't know if you have anything to add, or Lux, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of made the decision to not talk to any of my family anymore. I mean, like, I still talk to my dad. I mean, I don't talk to him now for different reasons, unrelated. But like my grandma like freaked out when she found out I was an atheist when I was a teenager. So I was like, yeah, these people, they're not gonna be receptive. I don't even want to like go through the effort of trying to explain myself. So that was kind of my prerogative. And it is unfortunate that we kind of have to make this decision between having family versus having like, you know, our full authentic selves, basically. Maybe if I had had a closer relationship with them, I would have felt worse about making that decision. But if one of them had been like explicitly transphobic, I would have just known beforehand, like, this person is not on my list anymore of people who I talk to. Like, I'm not going to let my kids go be with that person without supervision. Like, I'm not really interested in doing Christmas where I'm going to get called the wrong name and pronouns the whole time. And, you know, there is maybe like sometimes I regret that. Like, maybe I should have, because I have a younger sibling who came out as trans and they didn't get family acceptance. And I'm like, well, shit, maybe if I had tried harder, then that would have sort of paved the way. Like if I had just explained or whatever. But, you know, I don't think that's fair to put on ourselves either, to go, oh, you know, maybe society would be better, or maybe my family would be better if I just took the time to try to persuade these people. But I don't know how you're going to persuade a guy who literally said that trans people are a cancer that need to be eradicated. You know, like that's explicitly genocidal rhetoric, and I don't know how much progress you can possibly make with that person.
He listens to all the wrong people. But like, yeah, I think the other thing that's slightly hard is I literally live on the opposite corner of the block of my parents. Not by choice. They bought the house after I had bought my house for years. So being in such a close proximity as well to my family, I think makes it extra difficult, because if I do come out and then they're not receptive, like I have to drive by their house to park my car.
It's painful.
Yeah, that is hard. So Alex, what that's
was like letting out her dogs, and you know, there's all those like things that just are not gonna happen if, and like the worst thing too is if they just pretend I'm still a guy, and then I have to be the one that rejects them essentially because they're just ignorant or like ignoring it.
Yeah. So this
I mean,
is
it's really
why
cynical.
I'm happy.
There's like a lot less end of life costs for you if they disown you now, or if you disown them now. Okay, sorry, that was just my cynical, funny comment. Continue, Josie.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no. To bounce off of that, my mom one time told me, don't expect anything in the will, because we literally are going to spend every penny.
Love that. Yeah, like
go.
what reason is there to stick around then?
Yeah,
I'm not looking for money.
Alex, this is why I'm glad you have a therapist to talk these things through, right? Because that's somebody that is going to be there for you regardless of what the answer comes out. And you know, at the end of the day, that for me with my family, that year and a half and that year without my sister was incredibly hard for me. It was hard on me because I loved my mom and my family and that side of the family so much. They came around because they chose love over their own silly, ignorant point of view that they came around to. And if you are in close proximity to them and they see you, there's going to be times where your mom is going to be sitting there. If she doesn't accept you, right, she's going to be sitting there. It's like, I just want to give her a hug. I want to give her a hug. And I'm my own anger is stopping me from loving my child. Right. And if they see you over and over and over again, they're going to probably come around. Now, this is me being hopeful. This is me being optimistic, because I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict anything that may or may not happen. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got an older sister, but she's a mess. And, but we've never been like close. We've never hated each other or
okay.
anything, but we've always just been, like distant throughout all of our life.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have okay, so that's unfortunate, and it's something that you have to, you know, do you have other trans people in your life around you? People that do
Yeah.
accept you? You do?
Oh yeah. I've got
Okay.
like every person. I have very few friends, but every friend that I do have knows and is hyper accepting and wonderful people.
Okay.
And yeah, I've got a
Great.
full supportive
Good.
chosen family.
That's amazing. So the reason I ask these things, Alex, is because you're gonna have to rip the Band-Aid off eventually, right? Like, and especially since they live so close to you in proximity. The fact of the matter is, if you are feminine in expression, you know, the hormones are going to kick in, and it's going to be like, what's going on with Alex? Why is she wearing a bra? And so eventually nature is going to say, tell them for you. And it's like, that's just how it's going to be. And really at this point, it's about you controlling your own narrative, right? And really just go out, have dinner, or however you do it, in a place that's safe, that you're surrounded with your family, and just do what you feel in your heart is best, and be patient. And I know it's hard to say, have patience and grace for your family, as they may not have the understanding and tools to be able to understand what you're going through. And I know it sucks to be like, be patient for the people that don't know what's going on with you and are extremely not helpful, but it's something that I think all trans people who have trans people in their, I mean, family in their lives that choose to do it, all go through this really rocky period of coming out. And it's like really rocky for a long time. Like, me and my mom, we're great now. I talk to her all the time. She actually brags about me now in front of her, and with other family members, which is a big deal in a Mexican household. But
Yeah.
it's like one of those things. So I overcame it, and sometimes, and I'll tell you what did it with my mom. What overcame it for my mom was that she started seeing me happy as the woman that I am today. And I think a lot of parents have that fear that you're choosing a life that is not going to be a life that you can thrive and find love in, right? And I think if you can demonstrate to them that your wife is going to stand by your side, um I assumed wife. I apologize. I don't know what gender they are.
No,
You said I wasn't sure if you.
you're good.
Okay, you said wife. Okay, I was making sure I didn't just like misgender
No,
your
you're
partner.
fine.
Okay. But you can demonstrate that your family's going to hold strong, that you have a supportive family network, that you have all the things that this makes you happy, that those are the markers that your family, especially you, are going to look for. They're going to make sure that you're happy. They're probably good. Like, when you come out, the first thing they're probably going to do is look at your wife and be like, "Are you okay with this?" Right? Because because they want to make sure that you're not going to have like a horrible divorce that's going to throw your life into a spiral and all of that. They're gonna care about that a lot, most likely. So that supportive network is gonna be helpful. And then give them time. If you don't see them for a month or two, and you're just kind of like hide in your homes for a while, just keep inviting. Hey, you want to come have dinner? Like, you want us to, do those type of things. Eventually they'll come around, because they're going to be curious. They're going to be like, wonder what Alex is looking like now. Like, because they get curious. They don't know what transition is. They don't know what that looks like. They have zero idea what your future beautiful self is going to be. So that's my advice. But just make sure that you schedule a therapist appointment the day you tell them, just so you can actually like ask them a day after, the day of. That's what I did. I was like, I literally told my therapist, I'm like, all right, so I'm going to tell my parents, when's our next appointment? I want to make sure that I talk to you right after I talk to them. And I'm glad I did that because I was a mess. I was crying all over the place. But use your support networks, use the tools to make sure that you're taken care of, because I want you to be safe.
I also recommend a divide and conquer tactic. I would recommend not coming out to both of them at the same time. Like, especially not at like a family gathering or something, you know, like if, because they, like what Josie was saying, like there is going to be a looking around the room for the other people's reactions kind of thing. If you're coming out to more than one person. So if it's like you and your wife and one parent at a time, then the only thing you have is your supportive spouse, and there isn't an opportunity for an inquisition. Like, you're not going to have both parents ganging up on you or anything. Like, that is a recommendation that I always make, is like try to get each individual person. Because like Josie was saying, you know, mom and dad had two different reactions. Like, I mean, maybe at first your mom had a pretty similar reaction to your dad, but like eventually they came around. And if you were to come out to both of them at the same time, that's like even more likely for them to gang up on you. Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
My stepdad was fine.
He's not invested in like who you are as a person in the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my stepdad, I did tell him at the same time, and he's a cop. So, but that's because, but they were living together, and they were, and you know, it's like, so for me, it was, I told both my mom and my dad, the man who raised me, at the same time. My biological dad, I literally waited about a year, and then I was like, you know what, I'll send him a text.
Yeah.
So I was like,
and it doesn't have to be in person. That's the other good thing. Like, you don't have to do it in person. You can write an email. You can write a letter. If your parents live down the road, you can put a letter in their mailbox and not have to deal with their immediate reaction, which might be a different reaction than they would have if they had 20 minutes to think about it, or 2 or 3 days to think about it.
Yeah. Alex, do what you feel is the best way to communicate, right? Whatever communication that you feel is best, do it. And then make sure you have a therapist ready to have that conversation after you take action.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's what I would do. So you can talk it out with the professional. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful, Alex. You know, us 1986ers, we got to stick together.
You both are wonderful. I am so glad I got to talk to you. I am sad I missed Arden. So I'll call back just to talk with Arden. I'll have no topic. Except for just talk with Arden.
Hey. Well, no, I you can call back and tell us what you can tell us, you know, how it went. And Arden, the voice of God, is on the call right now. What do you want to say?
He's
Arden?
always here.
Hello. Yes, I never go anywhere.
I just love you all. It's wonderful that I randomly found this channel. I actually found it from Forrest today, and it's a great place.
Oh,
we love Forrest.
Right.
Yeah, and it was great to see, like, Lux start in, because I've been watching Lux's, like, YouTube snippets of its stream, and yeah, wonderful to see that. I don't know the word for it. What's instead of they, if you're using it for?
Yeah, it's like it's as the possessive.
Okay.
It's channel, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been watching its channel for a while, and then you showed up here, and I was super excited. It was great. Anyways, I love all of you. Really wonderful. I love the spice. Keep giving people spice, because I am so passive aggressive that I give no spice in my life, and I live. Just
living vicariously through us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, thank you, Alex, for your call so much. We appreciate you, and good luck, and you know, Godspeed. Call back and let us know how it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once I gain the
absolutely.
courage, I'll let y'all know.
Yeah, let us know. I'm really invested. Please call back. All right, Alex. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. That was our last call. It looks like your skin is no longer the same color as your background.
Yeah, I
Which
still
is
feel really flushed, but that's the hoodie is trapping all the heat in. It did not have anywhere to escape to.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish Alex the best though. That's tough,
Mhm.
especially
It's
as you
hard.
know, like it's hard. You know.
Yep.
So great. So before we get to super chats, I just wanted to announce that on Saturday we have the Sunday. Oh wait, sorry. The Sorry, let me make sure. Yes, Sunday. We have the Sunday show with Jimmy and Eve. And then we also have After Dark, Matt Dillahunty and Eric. And then we have Skeptic Talk with Shannon Q. And then we have Chewed Gum with Alyssa. I'm not even saying the times. So Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central, we have Chewed Gum with Alyssa Ljub. And then we will have the Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty. We're not sure if Matt Dillahunty on Wednesday at 6 p.m. because he is having a surgery, so he may not be on that show. But if he is, then he'll be on Wednesday at 6 p.m. And then it will be you and Arden next week. I'm going to be in Comic-Con. I'll be in San Diego next week. So yeah, fun times. And if you haven't joined the Patreon, make sure you do that too, because there's a lot of good content and exclusive stuff that you can get through that. And we list your name at the end of the show, which you can see me be a dork about. All right, so $5 from William Mattis. I was violently attacked by tree and grass spunk right before the show. I'm DED, dead. Take my monies. Aw, well, I'm
So
sorry
sorry.
that, yeah, oof, allergies, they're
The
rough.
allergies. Yep.
They're rough.
It's real.
Yeah.
$5 from Charlotte. Thank you so much. Says Josie, you have inspired me so much, so often, especially in this past month or so. Luxander, you help me stay sane every single week. Keep on fighting. Yes. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. $4.99 from Jimnick06. And after 3 days at William Mattis will rise again in accordance to the chat. Oh, it makes sense. William's always giving me that Jesus vibe. That Jesus vibe.
Oh, $9.99 from Jeff Saloni says, Team Katy Montgomerie. I know. Katy is, spending her time arguing with people on Twitter and doesn't have any energy left for us right now. But that's okay.
Exactly.
We're giving her a break.
We're giving her a break. $5 from D27A. Caitlin, I feel like explaining this to some people, Matthew, is like explaining boiling water to a caveman. Anyone remember Prometheus and Bob from Kablam? Oh, I remember Prometheus and Bob. Is that before your time? No,
before
you
me,
remember.
or I just wasn't tuned. I wasn't tuned in at the time.
Oh my gosh! Well, you need to go on YouTube and look up some Prometheus and Bob. It was definitely the fun little shorts that would happen, and it'd be like these clay figurines where Prometheus the alien would be interacting with Bob the caveman, and it's joy. It's fun. I love it.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I saw this super chat when it came up and I laughed. Yeah, explaining this to Matthew is like explaining boiling water to a caveman, like just completely beyond their understanding. It's like it would kill a Victorian child kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
1999, thank you so much. Louise Richardson says, yes, forcing teachers to out trans kids is harmful, and I will vote for Biden because he's not Trump. That's a low bar. And because he's reversed the harm Trump did, and that wasn't easy. Debatable. If he feels weak, he should retire before the convention. Yes, we do hope that he rests because he's an old man and he deserves to rest.
He did reverse some harms, though. Like he did.
Some.
He did.
I will say
give
some.
him the credit.
I will acknowledge
give
some.
him credit when it's due.
Yeah, but they're letting COVID rip.
Reversing the military ban.
Okay, fair enough.
Reversing
Yes.
COVID ban, ACA stuff, making sure we're not discriminated through housing services, some things like that. Those things matter. Those things matter. Give
They do
the old
matter.
man his due. I got it. See, logical consistency. You see, Matthew? Even if you don't like to agree, there's still logic there.
Yep. You have
And that's
to.
why
That's what
Lux
being
is
a
on the
skeptic
show and
is.
you're not. Yeah.
Oh.
$5 from Caitlin Amber Hyde. Lux, you made my whole day. Aw.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome.
Lux makes my day all the time, too.
True. $5 from Charlotte says, Mamala 2024, #girls get it done. Yes. I
love
am
it.
not excited about Kamala either, but I will vote for her.
I love the
will.
boys meme coming in there. Girls get it done.
Mhm. For sure.
$5 from Skeptoidius. Lux hates coconut, and so does my fiance. LOL. I hate strawberries. They're nature's vomit. Most disgusting food on the planet. Oof. Throwing some opinions.
You're wrong, but you're allowed to be wrong. So
Yeah. You can have opinions. Those are your beliefs. You can have those. They're not harmful.
Perfectly acceptable. Maybe this person has never had like fresh, actual real strawberries. Like the ones in the store are flavorless compared to like fresh grown strawberries. That's the distinction. You got to go to a farmer's market.
That's true.
Get some fresh ones.
I just like, when like social media ruins things for you, I feel like strawberries were kind of ruined for me when they talked about like the natural things that swim around in strawberries, and I'm just
Fair
like,
enough. Yeah.
It makes me so like upset that I saw that. I know it's like completely harmless. Humans have been eating them for a long time, and it's okay. But now I know, and I can't unknow, and it makes me so angry.
You can wash them in a little bit of vinegar and then rinse them off with water, and that'll get rid of all the little things.
Who wants vinegar covered strawberries though? Like I just
you just rinse them off. Yeah, $10 from Brooks Dingus. Thank you so much. Oh wait, you skipped one.
I'm sorry.
Arden.
Sorry. We stopped talking.
You hadn't read that one yet.
Oh, we're done. Nope, my bad.
Nope.
Yeah.
Brooks Dingus, thank you for your $10 super chat. Says, love y'all. Thanks for dispatching Matthew. Dispatched.
Yes.
I feel like that has a greater implication than what we actually did. But yes, I forgot that I actually have the ability to hang up on people, and I could have just clicked the button myself.
It's
will
okay.
next time.
I was like, hang out. I was like, okay, Lux, whatever you say, I'm hanging up on this person. I was like, hang up on this person. Okay. I
appreciate your prompt response. Oh God. Yeah, I was #done with that.
Yeah, absolutely. $5 from Transgender. Do you have any good resources for feminine voice training? I'm trans femme and hate my deep voice, and it's the biggest reason I'm misgendered. Oh, I can hear you on that. My voice was the thing that gave me the most gender dysphoria too, and I had a really low voice. I can't even do it now. It doesn't even work. So obviously there are voice training resources online. I know YouTube is a really great place to start. You can do a professional voice therapist, but there's so many resources out there. And what I say is the number one thing that works the best, and I tell this to everybody, even after they've done voice training, is when you hold a swallow, it raises your larynx. If you hold that swallow for as long as you can until it starts getting sore, and then release it, and then whenever you remember later, just do it again, and just keep going for longer and longer periods of time. What ends up happening is it's like I call them Kegels for your voice.
Yeah, it's a muscular workout. It is. You have to change the musculature in your throat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that will help you strengthen the resonance piece, and you don't have to make a sound while you do it. I remember doing it when I was typing, when I just remembered I would do it. Don't do it where it like hurts and makes it sore. Like, do it like you were working out, and then you can do it. And then you can have like so many vocal range where you're like an anxious fairy in the woods, like worrying about things burning down, or you could be the guard at the gate. I'm a good DM, all right? I don't care what people say. My voice range and my character voices, I got them, all right? So it's worth it. Have fun with it, and just keep on practicing and strengthening your voice. It takes about takes about a year to do. Oh, also, I'll say this too. Talk to people that you're not friends with already with your practiced voice, because your brain has muscle memory and when it comes to your voice. So if you're talking to a lifelong friend and you have a specific way of talking to that person, your brain in your head will automatically go back to the voice that you usually talk to that person with, because it's the tone and candor that you already got. I actually have a friend, her name is Josie in Ohio. She's like my transition sister. We talked all the time on the phone for hours with our goofy little trans femme voices that we were practicing on each other, and it was so helpful because it gave me a lot of practice. So sometimes there are people that I know that are incredibly good with strangers with their voice that makes them feel comfortable, and then they go and they talk to a friend who are the people you normally talk to, and they're like, I can't get out of this voice. And it's like, yeah, that's because your brain has remembered a way that is not great. So yeah, those are two tips that I think are the best tips that I can give. So it's hard. It's hard
Makes
work.
sense. Yeah. It's practice. That's the thing. Practice. You actually have to do it. That's the thing.
I literally
$5.
started
Thank
a
you so
Twitch
much.
channel.
Sorry. Oh yeah,
I
to do
literally
voice
started
training.
a Twitch channel that's voice train, and it gave me the ability for 2 years. I was like talking for hours. So the
Mhm.
Love Nest on Twitch, it exists still. I just don't do it very often. I'm bad. I still love my little birds. I miss them so much.
I mean, you have a real
Anyways, go
person
ahead.
job. It's hard to be consistent on Twitch when you're actually working for 40 hours
Yeah,
a week.
yeah,
$5
exactly.
from Minute Rice 1954 says, "Hi, Jeremiah here. Wanted to thank you for taking my call and send support for putting up with Matthew. What a guy. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. We appreciate you. We appreciated your call. Thank you for your super chat. And yes, it is some consolation to get a $5 super chat after the call with Matthew. So thank you."
Yeah, absolutely. $4.99 from Philip Kelly. Is there a spice rack tea needed along with DHTH? I don't know what DHTH is, but there should be a spice rack tea.
Death is because on an episode of Chewed Gum, one of the hosts apologized after a caller interrupted her, and the other host was like, "Don't apologize to him." And so now Death is a thing. But I totally love Spice Rack also as the tea.
Yeah, Spice Rack is good.
Okay.
We gotta get the graphic design team on that.
Oh yes, absolutely. Somebody said a spicy Josie is a great drink name. Like I was reading some of the comments, and somebody's like, you know what, Spicy Josie does sound like a good drink name that you would buy at a bar.
For sure.
Yeah.
$4.99. Thank you so much, Louise Richardson. I passed for 40 years, but I had FFS after age 70 because of my personal dysphoria. After FFS, friends didn't even notice, but I felt better. Yep. See, sometimes you just got to do it for yourself. Like if you get bottom surgery, 98%, 99.9% of people are not going to know about it unless you tell them. So it's like, yeah, sometimes you just have to do shit for yourself.
Yeah, and if somebody realizes like, hey, where's your bulge? It's like, wait, you've been looking at my bulge? What the hell's wrong with you?
Why you been looking? My eyes are up here, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that would mortify me. It's like, even though I knew it was there the whole time for so long, I would be mortified if somebody was like, oh, I see you lost your bulge. I'm like, wait a minute. The fuck? Who are you? This is terrible.
I used to work in retail when I was early in my transition. I worked in retail, and I would see people do the eyes flick down when they couldn't tell. Yeah, definitely.
Oh my god.
A little bit embarrassing.
Oh my
True
god.
though.
Oh,
True.
gross.
Yeah.
Gross. $5 from Joshua Everett, cishet white guy here. I always thought of myself as an ally, but Transatlantic College Show taught me to always listen first, speak later. Aw. Well, we love our cis siblings on here. I'm so glad you were here. I know when I mentioned it, there was so many people being like, I'm cis. And I'm like, good. I'm glad. I love all
You're
of
here,
you
you're
so
learning.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
$10 from Domestic says, thank you, Josie and Luxander, for hosting Transatlantic. Well, thank you for your super chat and for watching. The show wouldn't be what it is if there wasn't like people calling in and people commenting in the chat. So, you all are part of it and we appreciate you.
Yes, $100 checks monies from Naresh. I said I talked with Faya on Discord, but it was Faye. There is no Faya on Discord at all. Sorry, Faye. And hashtag Team Luxy. Did I already use Josiander? I can't remember. I think you did, and I think we liked it.
Yeah, solid. Thank you. Another 100 check from Naresh says Jux. I'll take it.
Is it bad that I prefer Jux more?
I think it's very funny. Josiander and Jux are both very funny. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm there for it.
The Jux team. It makes me think of like juxtaposition.
Yes,
I like
that's
it.
good.
Yeah, it is good. $20 from Nikki. Thank you for the show today. Love you both today. Thank you. And thank you for your $20. You're awesome.
Thank you. $20 from Stephanie Helms. Thank you very much. Why do you think so many allies focus on the pick-me trans people's bad political takes, such as Brianna Wu, instead of focusing on the accomplishments of, was that Sarah McBride? Danica Rome, Sarah McBride, Danica Rome, Zoe Zephyr, etc. I mean, that's a great question. I think it's because they're bad faith. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. They're going with the trans person who confirms their bias instead of the trans people who challenge their bias.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very clear. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, let's go with this person because they're more willing to sell out their own people. Like, I think of like the Blair White supporters, Brianna Wu, you have freaking, oh my gosh, I'm glad I'm forgetting these people's names. But you have all of these terrible humans, Buck Angel. I know, Buck Angel, and like all of these people, they turn on their own community, and it gives them permission to be just a little bit shitty to trans people, and it's really frustrating. It's very frustrating. But yes, it should be Sarah McBride, Danica Rome, and Zoe Zephyr, Brianna Totone, Dina Martinez Hernandez, Olivia Hill. Let's see, who else am I forgetting? Now I'm forgetting trans people. Oh my gosh. Anyways, there's like so many. We got elected people. We got them all over the place. So yeah. Oh, we got another $10 at the last minute here. Tagline from Mike B, $10. Tagline: when Lux and Josie host, you've been juxtaposed. I love it.
That's solid. That's good.
Super solid. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. It will be Lux and Arden next week at the same time. And I will be in San Diego being a super nerd at Comic-Con. So I even have I'm going to cosplay and everything. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Ooh,
good time.
Fun.
Good time. Yeah. I might have to share a picture with the chat once I get back.
You cosplaying?
Awesome.
Dressing up?
I am. Yeah, I am. I'm dressing up. I'm dressing up as my D&D character. It's a sci-fi thing. So
it's an OP.
Yeah.
Original character. OC. Yeah. Look at all these people.
Yeah, OC.
I'm not trying to raise the volume on you guys. It's doing that on its own. Yeah. I'm like trying
Oh
to
my
stop
God.
it so we can
Is
hear
it
what
really?
you're saying.
That's okay.
It's
Join the
okay.
Patreon.
It's all fine.
Do it.
Subscribe